Dead Rising. What if the cure for zombification existed, and you still couldn't afford to live? What if your survival, your child's survival, came with terms and conditions? In Dead Rising, the cure isn't mythical. It isn't locked in a lab or protected by some last scientist hiding in a bunker. It's real. It's available. It even has a brand name. Zombrex. One shot. Once a day. And you don't turn. Sounds like salvation, right? Not even close. Zombrex isn't a cure. It's a subscription, designed by the same pharmaceutical giant that engineered the virus in the first place. They caused the outbreak, then sold the antidote back to the public one dose at a time. And there's no bulk discount, no forgiveness. Miss one dose, you die. Horribly. That's assuming you're lucky enough to get infected in the first place. If your child needs Zombrex, you better have deep pockets, fast connections, and no conscience. Because in this universe, the undead aren't the greatest threat. Late-stage capitalism is. Quarantine zones turn into prisons. Survivors who can't pay are labelled biohazards. The media spins the outbreaks. The military enforces the lie, and the public. The public just keeps lining up at the pharmacy. Dead Rising pretends to be funny. Chainsaws in malls, costumes, improvised weapons. But underneath all that chaos is something bleak. This isn't a zombie apocalypse. It's a business model. And if you don't buy in, you rot behind a wall while someone else cashes the check. In Dead Rising, the infection isn't the point. The real disease is the system that sells you the cure. Resident Evil. In Resident Evil, every zombie outbreak begins the same way. With a cure, a miracle drug, a regeneratio serum. A leap forward in medicine, weaponized in secret. The T-virus was never designed to save lives. It was a biotech experiment rebranded as research by the Umbrella Corporation, a pharmaceutical giant with more secrets than scientists. When the virus escaped, cities fell. But instead of finding a vaccine, Umbrella doubled down. Every outbreak became an opportunity. Failed cure trials led to secondary strains, the G virus, designed to perfect the mutation. The Nemesis program, an attempt to create obedient undead soldiers. Las Plagas, a parasitic workaround to preserve cognition and control. Every so-called breakthrough only created something stronger, faster, and harder to kill. The more Umbrella tried to fix the outbreak, the more the virus adapted. The result? Creatures that no longer resemble humans, all birthed from the same corporate lie. We're close to a cure. There is no cure in Resident Evil. Just mutations. Just escalation. Just bodies piling up while another lab runs another test in another underground facility. In this universe, science didn't fail. It succeeded exactly as planned. Last of Us. What if the cure was real? What if it worked? And what if the only thing stopping it was you? In The Last of Us, the cordyceps fungus doesn't create classic zombies. It hijacks the brain. It spreads through spores and bites, turning humans into fast, violent, deformed husks, driven by instinct, guided by nothing but the urge to spread. Cities fall. Governments vanish. The world doesn't end with a bang. It crumbles in silence. And then, a miracle. Ellie, bitten, infected. Still herself. She's the only known immune person on Earth. The Fireflies, a rogue medical faction, believe they can use her to create a vaccine. Not a theory, not a guess. A real shot at reversing the infection. But there's a catch. The fungus lives in the brain, and to extract it, they'd have to remove the host entirely. Ellie would die. No trial, no alternatives, no second opinions. She doesn't get a say. But Joel does. Joel, the man who lost his own daughter at the start of the outbreak. The man who carried Ellie across the ruins of America. The man who began to see her as family. He makes a choice. He kills the surgeons, shoots his way through the hospital, carries her out like a broken promise. And when Ellie wakes up, he lies. tells her there were others like her, that they didn't need her. The world's only cure dies in a hospital corridor, not because it didn't work, but because love got in the way. In The Last of Us, the virus wasn't stronger than science. It was just no match for grief. The infection survived, but so did love. And in this universe, that's not a triumph. That's the cost. I Am Legend. The cure for cancer was real, and it killed the world. In I Am Legend, science created a miracle, a genetically modified virus that could eliminate disease. But the virus mutated. Billions died. The rest transformed into hyper-violent creatures who burned in sunlight and hunted by night. Dr. Robert Neville, one of the last immune survivors, spent years trying to undo it. Testing serums, capturing infected, torturing himself with the weight of humanity's last hope. And when he finally develops a working cure, he has no one to give it to. Civilization is gone. The infected don't want saving. They've built a new world, one where he's the threat. The cure doesn't restore anything. It just proves he was too late. 28 weeks later. 6 months after the rage virus decimates Britain, the worst appears to be over. The infected are dead. The cities are empty. NATO steps in to rebuild. A safe zone is established in London. Then a woman is found, bitten, infected, still alive. She's a carrier, immune to the virus, but able to spread it through blood or saliva. Scientists believe she's the key to a cure. But before they can test her, she's killed. Infected blood reaches her husband. He turns, and the virus begins again. Faster this time, smarter, more chaotic. The military panics. The safe zone falls. There is no cure. Just one immune body, lost in the fire. In 28 weeks later, humanity doesn't lose to a virus. It loses to its own inability to protect the cure it already had. World War Z. In World War Z, the infection moves faster than any army. Cities fall in days. Governments collapse in weeks. The zombies don't wander. They swarm. A tidal wave of bodies, relentless, fast, coordinated by instinct. And worst of all, they choose their targets. The sick, the dying, the weak. They're ignored. So humanity finds its cure. Not a vaccine, not an antidote, but a mask. People are deliberately infected with deadly but treatable diseases. Meningitis, typhoid, tuberculosis, anything that makes the body look less viable to the infected. You survive the zombies by dying just a little. It works. The spread slows, the cities stabilize, but no one celebrates. Because in World War Z, we didn't beat the virus. We just convinced it we weren't worth eating.